What happens when your company can't run at all without you, when everything dies because you are out of office for a week or two? Being needed, it makes you feel valuable. It makes you feel like you're adding a lot of value to the company. But if you look at it, that doesn't equal output. It literally makes you more of an employee than a CEO, if anything. We've seen clients who can't even mourn their dead family members because of how involved they are in their companies. Because if they stop to mourn their family member, it's not going to be the only person who dies. You're trying to scale, you're trying to grow more, but then you realize, like, subhanAllah, I only have so many hours in a day. If there's one thing you take from this podcast, let go. CEOs, trust me, just let go.
What was the belief that had to die for you to actually leave your company? Today we're talking about a necessary identity shift that majority of 7, 8, 9-figure CEOs have still failed to make, which is transitioning from being the operator to the actual CEO of their business. In this episode, we're going to explain to you what it actually means to be a CEO, what it means to be an operator, and how to actually transition from being an operator to an active CEO in your business. So Sheikh, I want to understand yourself first of all. At what point did you actually realize that doing more in your business actually stopped you moving forward?
This is such a big transition. Like you mentioned, it's a massive identity shift. When you take that jump from being the operator, the one who everything goes through, right? You're sort of like the center. I imagine it is like a Luka Modric, right? No. If you want to score, if you want the ball from back to defense, you always need to put the ball through him. Right? He's in the center. He makes everything else happen, right? But it gets to that stage where you need to transition, right? Where you have to stop being the one that does everything, or the one that everything goes through, or the one that has to provide a green stamp beside every decision that's made. I need to sit down and actually think, like, how do I build like a company that's more self-managing, that can run by itself, and I focus on the direction rather than on the day-to-day. Now, I must admit, the whole idea of this being this person that sits on this, great table and handles the whole vision stuff and just says to Mr. Operations or Mr. Integrator, do this and then it's done is also a facade. It's not true. There does have to be some, coherence between the two. And sometimes you will have to jump slightly into the operator seat. Sometimes, certain things, right? But it shouldn't be your main position or your main thing. Okay. Now, another thing that is very important is to understand the size of the company. And this is another thing that is very true. The more your company grows, the less and less of the operations you should be involved in. Now, I'm not saying that at the smallest level, even small CEOs should be, spending all the time in operations. No, but I do understand, and I do, after coaching 800 CEOs and having multiple businesses myself, I can tell you, even till today in certain companies, I'm solely vision focused. In other companies, I'm more with the operations, but overall, yes, I'm mostly doing what? I'm mostly doing the CEO activities.
Okay, but I want to go back to the question, which is, when did you first realize that actually doing more brings you further back?
Listen, I remember a long part of my journey, you're trying to scale, you're trying to grow more, but then you realize, like, subhanAllah, I only have so many hours in a day, right? Like, genuinely, if you think about it, what I always tell CEOs is, no matter how great of a CEO you are and how great you are in these individual activities in your company, you still only have 24 hours a day, right? But if you bring 2 people on now, that's 48 hours. If you bring 3, that's 72 hours, right? In 124, if that makes sense. So now, technically, let's imagine for a second human beings work 24 hours a day, right? But now you have 72 hours worth of work that can be done in 124 hours. Right. This is leverage. It's simple. One of the highest forms of leverage is people.
But see, that's another thing, because when you're actually trying to make that shift, people become a very big part of it, right? And how you manage it and how you actually play your position as CEO means everything, right? Because if you're looking at the company and the way it's run, it's like, it's not really possible to get those 8 hours or 24 hours you're talking about unless you manage them.
I want to give you a promise. Nobody has probably been bit more by delegation than me. When CEOs tell me they hate the concept of delegation or letting things go, I get it. There's a reason we all like to hold on to things, because we have a certain quality, a certain standard that we live by. And there's a couple of issues when you're trying to transfer that over to someone else, which I do plan to get into this podcast. Okay. But I just want every viewer right now to know, when we talk about letting go and playing more with the CEO seat, it's not easy. It's not easy to let go of something. It's like your business is like your baby. Right. This is everything. You live off this. It feeds you. To let go of key aspects can be scary.
But that's like a child, though. At the same time, they reaches a point where he's a teenager. You have to bring him to the real world, right?
Of course, but you have to make sure before you set that child into this free world, that you've done what you needed to do to make sure that that child has a high chance of succeeding. And that's the part majority of CEOs miss out on. See, when we say let go or delegate, it doesn't mean like, yeah, listen, just you take care of this and you take care of that, and then you just absolutely leave them to their own will and desire.
Does the company never reach a stage where that should be the case?
Even then you should provide direction, right? It's the job of the CEO to provide direction. When people have a better understanding of what the end goal is, then the decisions they make along the way are much better because they understand the destination, right? For example, if I'm to give you an analogy from this, if I was driving to Essaouira, which is 3-4 hours away,
right,
versus me driving to Merzouga, which is about 9 hours away, I would make completely different choices.
Right.
Maybe about how much coffee I drink, maybe about me sleeping the night before, maybe about which car I even take. The point is, when you have a better understanding of the destination where you're actually going, when there's clarity around that, you're able to make more effective decisions day to day. Likewise, your team, if they don't understand what the company is actually trying to do and the important things and the end goal of the company, sure, they might make decisions day to day that are wrong, that you see as bad decisions. But that's because they didn't have all the information you had, because all the information is in your head.
Right.
Whereas when you give them the clarity they need and you're showing them why we do what we do, where we're going, what our 3-month goal is, what our 12-month goal is, our 10-year goal, then they are more geared to make better decisions.
And what impact do you think like making the identity shift had just in general with how you operate day to day?
Let's talk first about, sorry to swear, by the way, if you don't mind.
Go on, yeah.
But first I want to talk about why CEOs have such a problem letting go in the first place anyway. Because I think it's important to understand that, and that way we can sort of backtrack to break down. And one of the biggest things is, the truth is, it doesn't feel as good when you realize that your company can run without you. It sort of feels upsetting. Like the organization perhaps doesn't need me as much as it used to. I mean, it's great for the company, but it's terrible for your ego, right? You want it the way you want to be. You want to be a superstar. You want everything to come through you in the company. You to be able to say, like, I'm the first person who wakes up. I'm the last person who goes to bed. I'm the person who puts the majority of the blood, sweat, and tears. You know, Simon Sinek, leaders eat last, you know? But the truth is, none of that gets your company to scale. See, let's be honest. Being needed, it makes you feel valuable. Right? When people are constantly messaging you on Slack and, you know, your team is constantly chasing you for notification and, you know, looking for your approval on things, it makes you feel like you're adding a lot of value to the company. But if you look at it, that doesn't equal output. Sure, you feel needed. Sure, you have more messages, etc. But that doesn't mean your business is necessarily growing. Or because your task list has like 100 things on it, doesn't mean your company is growing. It means you're taking off task. It literally makes you more of an employee than a CEO, if anything.
Can't lie, it feels good though.
It does feel good.
It feels good.
Sure, in terms of your ego, it feels great. In terms of the identity of like, yeah, I'm the most valuable. But the truth is, like, are you trying to get your company to grow? Or are you just trying to, you know, keep your ego
why is it
happy?
even important in the first place? Like, because if I have the position in my own company, I can basically do whatever I want. Like I can, you know, just do tasks all day. And
because if you're focused on being in the company, who directs where the company is going? Right? If you're too zoomed in, who focuses on? And this is why I always see CEOs, right? You know, I speak to them and they're like, you know, there's so many things I could actually introduce into my business and there's so many places I could take my business, but I'm just stuck in the day-to-day, right? And the other aspects of that is there's other key areas of your life that are negatively affected now. Because you're so busy.
When you say that though, because obviously by getting rid basically of all these admin tasks and some of these operation tasks, a lot of the entrepreneurs, they comment, like once they've started to live by design, they're like, I'm kind of bored. Do you not get to that point where it's like, I'm just bored of just doing visionary tasks?
There's less instant gratification with these things, right? When you're doing a task, when you're stuck in task mode, you do something and you see the result instantly.
No.
But when you're being a proper CEO and you're leading with vision, etc., these things can take a little bit more time. You're more designing systems that are going to allow your company to grow and scale. You're building builders, which is what CEOs should be doing. Like when I look at it, CEOs have literally treated their companies like their children, right? Like we talked about. And they've never allowed these children to see the real world. And just like kids will have to eventually wake up and go into their life by themselves, so will your company.
Yeah.
You're going to get sick. Something is going to happen. And what happens when your company can't run at all without you, when everything dies because you are out of office for a week or two?
But that's the thing, bro. I don't even when I'm sick, I don't take a day off.
We've seen clients who can't even mourn their dead family members because of how involved they are in their companies. Because if they stop to mourn their family member, it's not going to be the only person who dies. The company is going to follow as well.
That's deep. Not gonna lie.
They can't even stop to grieve.
And that's kind of what we talk about a lot, which is there's more aspects to life than purely your business.
Look, I get it. Business is a big thing, and we don't do business just for the sake of the money, etc. But you have to understand, if you really want to have an impact, you need to understand where your areas of impact are. Doing tasks in your company that can be easily replicated by other people is a sign that you are not operating in your genius zone.
Okay, so if I was to ask you, right, what was the biggest, I guess, belief that had to die for you to actually lead your company?
That the quality would drop. The quality would drop if I delegated. It's true though.
Okay.
Quality does drop.
So the fear is real.
Yeah. When you delegate, quality does drop. Not for long. Short term, yes.
Okay.
Right? Short term, the quality drops. But if you built the right systems in place, we should get to a stage where that person is able to actually function better without you.
But isn't the cost of just like even allowing that testing period where that dip goes through and then they get better, is that not a very expensive?
That's what I refer to as the fear of slowness. It's the phase where entrepreneurs feel like teaching takes so much longer and is so much more slower than if I was to just do it myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Short term, again, you're right. But long term, you're wrong. Because yes, maybe you give 2-3 months to training that individual and it takes a lot of your time and your focus. But now for the rest of your company's life, you never play that role again. Or you could say, I'm not going to stop for these 3 months or so to stop because it's going to waste my time, etc.
No.
But now you have to do that task for the rest of your life.
So then it does really come back down, because there's a couple of factors. Obviously there's fear, but there's a lot of emotions going on here, because there's obviously fear. There's also the ego, right? You don't get to be that hero that you built your business, for. Like the whole purpose of a lot of these guys is they want to be the hero of their business.
Look, the Prophet ﷺ wasn't the one that, opened the gates of Constantinople or that took over half of the Muslim world. But he's still responsible for it. Why? Because he inspired it. And that's where, as a CEO, you need to understand that it's not your job necessarily to be in the spotlight. It's your job to build builders, to build people in the company who can go ahead and do great things. And once you can make that shift of stop being the main man and give that and build main men, then your company will achieve more.
That means they're not building a business, really. It's really just more so about feeling, significant.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. When you're holding on to every seat in your company, it's great for your ego, but it's terrible for your business. Your business can't scale that way. If you're focused, like, I'm not going to lie to you, there's aspects of my company that till today, I don't know how they work fully. Now, if you would have asked me something like that 2-3 years ago, insane. I need to know every in and out, what software we're using, how much the software costs, what the software is linked with. I needed to know every stage, but I'm telling you, you can't scale that way. Because when things get bigger and everything is dependent on you, that means you become the biggest blocker in the company. Because it always has to go through you.
That's why we call it a mindset shift. Because once you've actually made the intention that, I'm okay with this, that's when things start to change. Sorry.
And accept, it's. I don't know why people feel like they think they can delegate something and it's going to go perfectly. You will go through that phase. All right. No. And I have a beautiful framework for how to actually delegate things properly and how to let yourself go. Guys, listen to me. If there's one thing you take from this podcast, let go. CEOs, trust me, just let go. It is the most liberating feeling in the world until it bites you in the backside, which we'll talk about. But even the initial feeling of just letting go, it feels great. I've talked about this story before, but there was a day I hopped on with my ops manager and I just looked at everything on my list and I delegated like 95%. I was like, listen, you take care of this, you take care of that. And I'm not going to lie, after that meeting, I felt great. I felt like I could finally, because the last 5% was actually the things that were going to scale the business, that caused the business to grow. Now that he took 95% of the weight for me, the rest of the 5%, that was the most important. Because when we talk about 80-20, there's still the 95-5. This was the 5% of things that would have 95% impact on the company. And now I can focus on that with 100% of my capacity, rather than it being split between those other things. Now, when does it bite you back in the backside? When those things aren't being done well.
Sorry.
But again, you have to understand that that's a natural process. It's going to happen. And the only way for us to eventually allow that company to grow by itself is to stop being the one that controls it always. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the things we do with our clients is referred to as the CEO Blackout Test, right? It's crazy, right? This is where the CEO goes absolutely ghost for 14 days. They go absolutely ghost in their company for 14 days. And there's no period where my clients annoy me more than when they're in the blackout phase, right? Like, I just want to check a message, or I just feel like something, I'm just, no, just leave it. We need to understand where, if something happened to you today, what would break first? Now when you come back from your CEO blackout and you come back into your company, now we can actually understand exactly what needs to be worked on first. Exactly what areas of your company are actually weak because they're so dependent on you. And what is actually taking majority of your focus and time. Now we can start to build the systems for prevention of that, right? But whereas if you're constantly in the day-to-day, you don't see how much of your company sometimes actually relies on you. And sometimes you see that, whoa, subhanAllah, like I stopped being involved and this department actually did better. Perhaps I should just let that department run by itself.
No.
So there's so much khair that comes out of the CEO blackout, man.
And that's what it is. I think the main thing is, that's why we call it live by design. You actually have to design a system that lets the company work without you. Like
Of
that's,
course.
How else could you allow that to happen without a system?
Yeah, listen, the reason majority of people can't let go is because his whole company is in his head. Like how his company runs and everything, his core values, all of that is in his head. He knows it by memory, meaning in order for us to know what to do, we're gonna have to go to the operating system, which is him. We're gonna have to go to the rule book, which is the CEO, right? Whereas when you actually build a system and you put all of this on paper, your team make much more guided decisions. Like you've worked with me for a very long time. You can understand that there's been a massive transition in the last 2-3 years in terms of how I lead the company and everything. Because like now I've shifted the company from being in my head, which is the common comment I used to get. You know, like everything is just in your mind. No one knows what goes on in your mind. You just make decisions and we don't get it. Now the team can make decisions that I would very much make. And like sometimes I look back at decisions and I'm like, who did that? And they're like, I was like, was that me? Like, no, it was me. It's like, you know what, that's exactly what I would have done. Why? Because you've built a framework and you've laid out the operating system. You've built these things, you've built the structure, you've built the systems, you've trained your team enough to know how to work.
I think
in
a good
situations.
word you just used there was actually a rule book. Because now that I think about it, even especially in the early stages when we had the business, it was, if something needed to get done, I have to go check with the rule book, which was you. I had to ask you. You're like, you're my chat GPT, you know, type of thing, where it's like, if you actually have those documented, written out, trained, SOPs, everything is built out, I don't need to come to you anymore.
Yeah, like...
And in fact, you even have department heads to develop those things that you've built.
Barakallah feek. And they improve them. You know, one of the ways you'll see that delegation was successful is by like the 3 to 6 month mark, you'll actually find that they start to perform better in that department than you did. They start to achieve more. Now, the timeline depends as well on the department, but I'm saying within that 3 to 6 month window, you might see that the stats now are better. So guys, let go. And listen, I know why majority of people can't let go. I get it, it's tough, but this is what I'm saying. Like, I can't tell you every single one of our clients that said, no, if I let go, it won't be as good. We proved them wrong. Now, those departments are performing better without them.
No. Okay, so when we're talking about the shift, and we'll talk, inshallah, towards the end of the podcast, and as to the actual steps to get out, to get yourself out of the business as an operator. But why is it even important for me to be doing CEO activities, and what are these CEO activities I should be doing?
Perfect. Number one, the CEO needs to define the North Star, right? So you are the compass, not the engine. This is what you need to understand. Your clarity will become the company's energy. Your team will start to lack focus. They will start to lack energy when there is no clarity as to what they're doing and where they're going. So when you're confused, everyone in the company is going to be confused as well. They're exhausted. then number 2 is decision making. It's your job to decide what truly matters and what doesn't matter. You have to be the ultimate filter, right? Every day, information, ideas, emotions will flood the company. It's your job to honestly be the one who decides what passes through. Then number 3 is development. Build people, not dependence. As a CEO, you don't scale through output, you scale through the output of others.
Okay, so it's like a thing of leaders build leaders.
Exactly. It's not about how much you are able to do.
No.
What shows a great CEO is how much he allows, how much he enables other people to do.
Is that not an operator's job though?
No, the operator's job is to pass down. You need to build the builders. You need to build the builders. You have to inspire and train. The operator deals with the operations, what happens day to day. But in terms of building the people, and I'm talking about the head of departments, by the way, I'm not talking about every single person on the team.
No.
Right? That's your job as a CEO, to build them, to allow them to become leaders.
And then there's a concept that we mentioned before when we talk about it in Scale by Design, which is the concept of new money versus old money, right? And you said that's a big part of the role as well. How does that work?
Just a key thing to mention here is there's certain things in certain businesses, CEOs will always play something slightly more than CEO role. Okay. Right? So you find that maybe in certain businesses, technically he's playing the role of business development as well as the CEO.
Right.
These are not mandatory things for CEO. They can be hired, but the thing I gave you are what that never changes, regardless of any CEO, etc. But again, I'm going to make it clear, depending on the stage of your business, you will have slightly more different tasks, right? That are added to your CEO task list, if you will, right? But when we talk about old money versus new money, the concept of what it means is you're focusing on creating new wells, right? You let your team, you let everyone focus on digging deeper into the wells that you already have, but it's new strategic connections, maybe mergers, acquisitions, etc. These are things that radically expand and grow the business.
So I think we've understood what a CEO is supposed to do. Can you explain what an operator is supposed to do then? Because if I'm trying to shift between an operator to CEO, what's the difference between the two in the first place?
A CEO should primarily, and I'm just going to say a CEO and an operator here, right? We're just going to keep it simple. A CEO should be primarily asking himself, where are we going and why? Right?
Okay.
Where are we going and why? And an operator is more asking himself, how do we make sure we get there reliably? Like, what is the step-by-step, the inner details that would take for us to get there? Make sense?
And I think it was very important that we make this distinction, because a lot of the time you'll find that the CEO is dabbling between obviously both positions. But when you know what you're supposed to be doing day to day, and you're able to look through your time and you do audits consistently, you'll start to see the clarity. Like, you know what? The reason my company isn't going to the stage that I wanted to get to is because I'm spending a lot of time in things that aren't my role anymore, right? So, okay, we know what a CEO is. We know what an operator is. How does a person now make that transition? He's like, okay, look, I've looked at myself. What you mentioned an operator does is what I'm doing now. How do I make that shift to being a CEO step by step? Something practical that will take them, out of being stuck in operator mode.
Okay, perfect. Don't delegate everything at once. I did that and it was the worst thing I've ever done. What you want to do is you want to slowly get rid of these things. That maintains stability in the company and it stops you from going through that massive hiccup phase. So what I would do is I would simply say this. I talked about this with my clients. There's another video on it. If it's out by then, I'll make sure the team links so you guys can watch it. But the first thing I would do is I would sit there and I would just audit what tasks are actually taking majority of my time, but could easily be delegated.
Right.
I would start there. Tasks that are taking a huge amount of time, but can easily be delegated, right? Then the next thing, as the list becomes more complex, you need to follow this clear framework. When you delegate, you don't just let go, okay? So the first thing is you understand what you audit. From the audit, when you understand what you're actually trying to let go of, you need to decide who's genuinely the best person to take over this role, right? And then, here's the key thing. You must think to yourself, what does done look like? And you need to clarify it to that person. What is the outcome here? What does success in this action look like? Because a lot of times I see CEOs, they don't clarify that clearly. We've delegated it, but what does done look like? Done isn't just ticking a box beside it.
Right.
For example, if it's client delivery, it means clients have done all of these key tasks and they are happy. They have a NPS score of the XYZ, right? You've clarified what success in that action looks like. It's not, make sure the building is clean. It's everything in this specific, do you understand what I'm saying?
And that's the
You've
point.
broken it down what done looks like.
You're creating clarity. So the whole point is you need to make it clear for the one that's going to operate in the first place.
Exactly. Right? And then the next thing you want to do is do what I refer to as the shadow. This is especially for the important tasks. Because one of our CEOs, he was doing a task that was quite important. I mean, a mistake would be detrimental for his company. So what I told him was simple. Just continue doing the task. Okay? But let him watch you do the task. And whenever because it's a task that can't exactly be explained. There's no perfect rule book for it.
Right.
I get it. Sometimes it's going to be like that in certain companies, etc. But what you want to do is let him shadow you when you're doing it and explain to him why you've made certain decisions at certain times and engage in that with him. And then do what we refer to as the reverse shadow. So now when he is doing it, you're also shadowing him.
Wow.
And you're telling him, no, I wouldn't have done that. First, you allow him to make the mistake, right? It's very important.
This is
so like we
sick.
said, number one, you want to audit. What's actually taking a lot of time?
No.
It's difficult for this task to be repeatable maybe, but it's taking up a lot of my time. I need to get rid of it.
Right.
Clarify what great looks like. What does done look like? And then shadow, let them shadow you, and then you reverse shadow them.
No.
And engage in feedback loops every week. For example, one of the companies that I recently let go of, what do I do every week? Okay, let's just have a where we touch base. Right? We make sure everything is good.
No.
And then that allows you to slowly get rid of you being the one running the company.
And that's it. And then from that point on, you're just kind of refining. It's like you said, the guy went from 40% close rate until basically 80 because there's those feedback loops are constantly.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. And listen, guys, if you try to delegate or let go of things without operating system, you're going to absolutely kill your company, crash and die. So if you actually want to build a proper operating system for your company and you want to start to live by design, then click the link in the description and book a call for myself.